Our next panel at FinTech in 2021 is attempting to answer the question, is alternative financing becoming mainstream financing? And we're going to be looking at what are the alternative players in the market and what are the services that they offer. We're going to be looking at the way emerging markets are really a huge entry point for these alternative finances, huge growth happening in those areas. We'll be talking about the way that AI is really helping alternative finances to make better credit scores and risk assessments quicker and more accurately over their customers. And it's a very common theme here at FinTech. We are going to be looking at the dance that FinTech companies and traditional banks are doing with each other right now and how they are working out this relationship going forward. Our moderator for this panel is Mindaugas Mikalajūnas. He is CEO of SME Finance. They're a leading B2B platform in the Baltics, and Mindaugas himself has 14 years experience working in the financial sector. Mindaugas, how are you today, mate?
Super. I'm super happy to be here in FinTech and on the stage with you, and I'm ready to start our panel discussion.
Excellent. We're all looking forward to it. Let's start the panel.
Thank you for introduction, and I will introduce our colleagues, our guests, and panel discussion participants. It's Thomas, and we have two guests online, Michelle and Diego.
So, shall I start?
Yeah, you can start. You are here, you are next to me. Sorry, colleagues, we will pass on you later a little bit.
So, my name is Thomas, and I'm CEO of Finbi Wesley, alternative lender operating in Lithuania right now. So my background is that historically I've been working in a couple of fintech companies in London. So that would be Ivoca, I would say leading SME lender in the UK and Germany market, as well as the PaySafe, which is a multinational payments company operating worldwide, basically. However, a couple of years ago, I've decided to move back to Lithuania. And since then, I've been helping to grow our alternative lending market. So that's me happy to be here.
Okay, thank you, Thomas. And Diego, please introduce yourself once again.
Okay, well, my name is Diego. I'm the president of AB Fintech, which is the Fintech Association of Brazil. We are a group of around 480 associate members. And also, I'm the co-founder of SMU Investments, which is a crowdfunding platform around in Brazil. So I'm very connected not only with Brazil's scenario, but also with Latin America. So I'm here to talk about what's happening here.
Thank you, Diego. And Michelle, please.
Thank you, Mindaugas. Hey, my name is Michel. I am the general manager at Mambu for the Benelux and the Baltic region. Mambu being the leading SaaS core banking vendor, which enables composable banking, which actually enables our customer to embrace an ecosystem way of thinking. So integrating best of breed third parties to build and achieve real synergy benefits. And I'm very pleased to be here today. So thank you for inviting me. I would have loved actually to be in the studio, which would have been much nicer, of course, but hopefully next time.
Thank you. So let's pass on the discussion and why is alternative financing it's important topic in general, and what we will cover during this discussion basically, and what we will touch the angles. I mean, fintechs, peer-to-peer, crowdfunding, neobanks examples, lenders examples, what kind of services they provide, why it's important for the market in general, because in Lithuania we have biggest rejection rate in lending area, so it's an efficient market basically, and this market it's going big or it's still niche players in long run, and many trendy topics, challenges, and many other things I think we will touch during this discussion. And maybe first, like, warm-up question, guys, for you. And dear market participants, please make quick overview from your experience in local and global market, how alternative financing is growing. Give some numbers, examples, cases, or maybe it's not growing and we are wasting time of our listeners. And maybe we can start from you, Diego. You are far away, but we feel you.
Yeah, sure. Well, the alternative financing marketing here in Brazil is growing very fast. Actually, we are one of the largest market, at least on the South Hemisphere. So there's a lot of things to do around here. The Brazilian banking services, banking market is very concentrated. We have only 5 banks holding at least 80% of all the credit and all the financial services around here. So there's a lot of things to do when it comes to newcomers or challengers for the Brazilian scenario. And also, we have one of the biggest fintechs in the world, which is Nubank. Nubank has at least 40 million users just in Brazil. And they are expanding elsewhere like Mexico, Argentina, Colombia, and they also have operations in Germany and some investments in new banks in India. So it's amazing to see a Brazilian fintech expanding elsewhere, expanding its operations around the globe. And when it comes to numbers, now Brazil has a framework for digital credit. And now we have more than 100 fintechs offering credit here in Brazil. And also we have a sort of at least 200 fintechs that somehow collaborates with the banks in order to provide access for digital credit. And there's a lot of things happening around here. As you may know, Brazil is a very big country. We have more than 200 million people in a geographic area similar to Europe, but there's a lot of people without the proper access for financial services around here in Brazil, and they are starting to access these services by now. So the movements of the digitalization and the proper access for financial services here in Brazil is growing very fast.
Okay. Nice to hear this huge growth in Brazil and Latin America. I know Nubank very well. I checked them. Let's pass on Michel. Michel, what do you see in Europe in general, basically, from your experience?
Thank you, Mindaugas. I think I fully align and agree with what Diego has said. Actually, I was reading an article the other day where I believe it was the University of Cambridge says that on a global level in 2020, the global volume of alternative finance grew by 24%. So in general, the growth globally is also taking place. And we see the same here at Mambu, also here in Europe, but also globally, where we see more and more alternative finance players approaching us, working together with us as customers. But on the other hand, what we also see, so actually the second point is that we also see that traditional banks are also starting to make a move into more the digital space and trying to start serving that part of the market where alternative finance really plays a key role. The ones that are seen as slightly more high risk in the bank's opinion, or let's say the underserved market space. So we are seeing two interesting things happening within the market, and I'm very curious how that will progress towards the future.
Okay, thank you for sharing. And Thomas, what do you see?
Sure. So maybe I'll add to my colleagues and talk about our local market, Lithuania. And just to add to Diego's point, is that he mentioned that 5 largest banks make up 80% of the market. So in Lithuania, the current situation is more fortunate or unfortunate, depends on how you look at it. And we have 3 largest banks making up 80% of the market. So there's a lot of room to grow. Talking about Lithuania, we can see that the alternative lending market is growing super rapidly. Besides the annual volume of issuance is increasing on an annual basis for most of the competitors operating in Lithuania, we see that the range of the products is increasing as well. So just to give a couple of examples is that now farmers can finance their machinery through crowdfunding platform all through the Europe now. This is a start based in Lithuania. Or real estate developers can get the funds for the development loan through the crowdfunding platform as well. We now have more than 4 players in the market operating for this specific product. So we can see the range of products is increasing rapidly. Besides that, the state support agency, Invega, is adding significant value to our local market as well. It helps to increase our liquidity as well as the help to finance the most vulnerable businesses in Lithuania, which is the young businesses. And usually those businesses are outside the scope of the usual investors. So Invega is doing a significant job here as well. Talking about ourselves, Finbi Verslui, we started operating in the lending market for the SMEs in 2017 and been growing annually for at least 50% on an annual basis, which is really fortunate for us. However, if you look at the big picture, based on the latest research that I have read, in the Eurozone alone, the funding gap for the SMEs is approximate to be around 400 billion euros. So, we understand that there's a long road ahead of us.
Thank you. Besides the growth, of course, we see a lot of challenges in the market, talking about alternative financing. And why we're not equal to the traditional lending providers locally and globally, and maybe regulatory helps here. What do you think about this? And Michelle, maybe you can start.
Yeah, sure. I'll first focus on the positive, let's say the positive the differences. So first of all, what really differentiates the alternative finance financial institutions is that they often are speed is one element, so that they make use of more modern technology, other risk scoring models that enable them to service their customers faster, and also flexibility is also something that I always see with these new alternative finance players in the market. However, what I potentially see, or what I do believe goes hand in hand with a challenge compared to existing traditional financial institutions, is the adoption of fintech. So in how far organizations really embrace fintech and trust fintech. I think trust goes hand in hand with in how far people will make use of banks or traditional financial institutions. It still remains slightly more challenging for alternative finance players. However, as we all know, and as we also most likely see in our own lives, this adoption is taking more place day by day. I think in Europe, we're still far behind of China in terms of percentages, for example, of exception or adoption of fintechs. But there's a strong growth. I believe in 2019, I think EY did a research. It's around about 80-something% now in Europe. And it came from, around about 40% in 3 years before that. So there's a rapid growth in that adoption. But that's something that we all see in our daily lives as well. So from that perspective, I think fintech adoption, that would be a challenge, but there's a rapid growth in there already happening.
Michelle, I just want to ask the provocation question.
Sure.
We are competitors, fintechs and the banks. They are competitors or they are friends, and they should collaborate more. What do you think?
Yeah, so I think both. So on the one hand, you can be a partner with the bank. You can easily also have the bank for where you get your deposits in order to lend to your customers. I think it really depends. So in the end, there is competition because there is a market to serve, and it will be served by one or the other. It really depends on how the relationship with the bank is. Some alternative finance players make use of those banks. Others make use of peer-to-peer lending. It also really depends on where you get your funding from, I would say. What's your view on that, Mindaugas?
I totally agree, basically. In part of the way we should collaborate or somewhere compete.
Yeah.
And what kind of challenges do you see, Thomas, talking about alternative financing? What is your ideas?
Yeah, the market reputation, at least in Lithuania, is quite struggle. It's a challenge for us. Talking about the SME lending, for our customers, go-to provider is always a bank. And despite the fact that the process is super lengthy, usually takes weeks to get some sort of decision, you need to provide a lot of documents. It's always go back and forth with filling up the forms. And at the end of it, you get no deal at all because the banks being super conservative, at least in our perspective. So we need to educate our SMEs that fintechs and alternative lenders are there for you. They can provide a much better service and customer experience and provide you with a more suitable solution in order for you to grow. So that's one of the key challenges that we're trying to tackle with the market education. The second one would be liquidity in Lithuania, I would say. So, looking from our perspective, talking about Finbi Verslui, relatively small ticket loans, we are able to fund them quite easily. We operate as a crowdfunding platform, so always need to balance out the demand and supply. Loans less than 30,000 euros to have a length of less than 2 years, that's fine. Our individual investors, together with the government agency in Riga, are able to fund these loans. But if it comes to bigger tickets, we are not able to provide a more competitive offer when comparing to banks, since our investors are not willing to earn double-digit returns. The market there's a huge inefficiency, as you mentioned before. There's a huge gap, right? And one of the solutions would be co-investing together with investors into these loans. But us as a small SME lender, it's difficult to access the capital as well. So we could co-invest into these loans. So I think these are the two main challenges we're facing right now, at least in Lithuania.
Thank you. And Diego, your ideas. What do you see in the Brazil or Latin America?
Okay, perfect. Well, we have a similar situation around here. The challenges must be the same. For you to know, like the adoption, that there's some struggles for the end users to understand how easy it is to operate fintech and so on. And to add a spice, the banks do not collaborate around here in Brazil as well. There's a lot of discussions as well. They used to say that the regulator works in favor of the fintechs, and there is not a equal treatment when it comes to regulation or even for taxes. They used to say that the taxes that the fintech space is lower in comparison with the big banks around here in Brazil. So there's a lot of discussions going on in this case in order to try to avoid this kind of discussion with Brazil and not having discussions regarding how big or how fast we are growing. No, we are just wanting to operate in an easy way around here in Brazil. When it comes to funding, we have a very well-developed market when it comes to capital markets access for SMEs around here as well. But only the primary market was proper developed, so on. So now we are talking with the regulator in order to promote some sort of secondary market for crowdfunding here in Brazil. And now we have the sandboxes, the regulatory sandboxes, which is the program for innovation in capital markets around in Brazil. So the regulator has recently approved a platform that will provide liquidity for investors that somehow access this market, the crowdfunding, if they wishes to sell its shares on a company that they acquired through crowdfunding platform. Now there's a secondary market that is going to operate it. And basically the problem are the same around here, okay. I could say.
Clear. Do you have more initiatives from the state talking about alternative financing, startups, co-investing, risk part, I would say, covering the potential losses, etc.? Because in Baltics, basically, we have some institutions. In Vega, the same example, they are very active in this area, and it's a huge, I would say, help for SMEs, for smaller players, managing this topic?
Yes, for sure. There's a lot of willingness of the state to collaborate in order to provide a proper access and to uh, put the risks in a low basis for the investors as well. So there's some match fundings here in Brazil where when you access those platforms like crowdfunding platforms, those funds put the same amount by the government. It's public money flowing through the capital markets as well, in order to try to give some access and to collaborate with the growing market around here in Brazil, especially for SMEs. It's not easy to have access to credit when you do not have some collaterals to offer, you know. So the Brazilian government has somehow offering as the frameworks to give a proper and easier access for SMEs for this kind of investments on the alternative finance scenario.
Okay, thank you. Let's talk about your cases basically, and let's start from the first Finbi case. COVID pandemic situation, business needs government and support. How the fintechs was approaching into governmental lending, and what did the biggest banks?
Yeah, that's a very good case, Minogas. So during the beginning of pandemic of 2020, when the lockdown kicked in Lithuania, the government realized that there's a significant need of support for the SMEs that basically cannot operate because of the COVID situation. And therefore, they allocated 200 million euros in order to provide soft loans to SMEs mostly affected by the COVID. It's a significant amount of work for the state agency, and therefore they decided to reach for the help for the financial intermediaries in order to administrate such loans. And we at Finbi Versli, being a super flexible alternative lender, we were able to integrate technologies and create new processes, hire the right people within the days since the announcement, and starting helping those SMEs that needed access to capital, the moment they actually need it. And while the banks, being the large banks and, they need to create the processes and whatnot in order to start the new product, and therefore took weeks and months in order to start working with this application. So as a result, 2/3 of all of these loans issued to the businesses affected by COVID were issued by alternative lenders, which is really surprising considering the difference of the customer base comparing with the SME lenders, like alternative lenders and the banks. At Finbi Versli alone, we have issued 45% of loan applications for these businesses, which we are really proud of, that we were able to help so many businesses when at the time when they really needed to access the funds.
Please repeat these figures, because I think we missed. 2/3, yeah?
2/3 of the funds were funded by the alternative lenders and not banks, yes.
But why banks, they don't want to make easy, it's a commission fee, easy money, I think. Why they didn't participate in this game?
It's difficult. You need to have flexible systems. You need to have resources in order to make decisions quickly. And that's why smaller organizations can do that within overnights, basically. While the banks, they're just too big in order to create new policies and change the way that they operate. Basically, they're not flexible enough.
Clear. Diego, you are investor and entrepreneur and FinTech Association board member. Please give us some news about Brazil or Latin America countries, market development, peer-to-peer market, FinTechs, neobanks, etc. Please share maybe some good cases, examples, particularly in this area.
Okay, the market here in Brazil is growing very fast. And when it comes to numbers, we have more than 1,000 fintechs here in Brazil. And they are very concentrated in the southeast region, which is the financial center around in Brazil, especially São Paulo. São Paulo city is the major city of our country. And we have more than 800 fintechs only in São Paulo. So in this case, São Paulo is the fourth largest city in the world in terms of the number of fintechs. We stay behind only San Francisco, New York, and London. So it's a very big scenario around here, especially for payments. The fintechs that offer payment services here in Brazil, they are the most relevant group of fintechs around here. But when it comes to neobanks and digital banks, they are growing very fast, as I said earlier. And also, we have the fintechs that operate somehow with crypto and blockchain, offering solutions for the end users and also to offer cross-border payment as a solution. So when you see the big picture, the influx of investments, especially for venture capitalists around here in Brazil, is growing very fast as well. So this year, we doubled the results of the last year only in 6 months. So, and the big investors are setting bases around here, like SoftBank. SoftBank has now a Latin America fund focused on SMEs and early stage companies, especially early stage companies where there's a high risk to invest. They are putting money alongside investors, Brazilian investors, not only the VC, the local VC firms, but also angel investors as well. So each week there's a new investment opportunity on the highlights, and they say the next unicorn was born around here in Brazil. We have more than 20 unicorns companies, 21 to be precise, and half of them are fintechs. So half of the VC investments was on fintech companies around here in Brazil. So everything's growing very fast, especially when it comes to venture capital investments. So that's it. There's a lot of money flowing around Brazil. It's a great opportunity to set up a business around here.
And Michelle, do you hear? There is a lot of opportunities, as you see. And Mambu provides core banking SaaS services, solutions for the banks, fintechs, neobanks, lenders, etc. Where and why do you see more opportunities in traditional lending or alternative lending? Who is buying your services the most? Who is invest the most? Because Mambu, it's not cheap stuff.
Nice that you raised that, Mindegas. With regards to Brazil, we actually have an office in Brazil, so we also are covering that. We are fully aware of all the potential there as well. But then to your point, Mambu being not so cheap, I'm really happy that you raised that actually, because I know that in the market there is a perception that Mambu might not be so cheap. However, I can assure you, we have multiple customers in the Baltics, which already is proof enough that it's should be affordable. And as a matter of fact, actually what we enable our customers to do is to reduce their costs, to scale increasingly, really be scalable, and also improve their time to market and reduce their risk. So actually what we enable our customers is actually counterintuitive to being not cheap. However, so to that point, just to briefly elaborate on that, because I would like to set that straight, because I know again that this is something that is spreading, at least what I'm hearing in the market, the feedback that I'm getting via in Lithuania. But so what I can assure you, the difference with a solution like Mambu compared to other solutions is that Mambu is a true sustainable solution. So rather than buying a solution today, which is outdated in a few years from now, Mambu is a SaaS solution that continuously evolves. So in other words, we grow with our customer and enable them to have that flexibility and that speed, which has been referred to already a couple of times today as key differentiators of alternative finance players. But if we then look at what do we see in the market and which is it alternative finance or traditional banks that come to Mambu more often? I'm afraid I'm again going to answer your question with both, because we see a real growth on both ends. As I mentioned, banks are really realizing that they need to digitize. So they are also, as also a result of COVID, more and more approaching true digital core such as Mambu to really go through that journey. But on the other hand, you have entrepreneurs that also see the potential, the opportunity that was referred to today, to step into this market and start serving the underserved or the unserved people and companies, not only in Europe but also across the world, such as Brazil. So we see a growth on both ends, and we are here to help. That's all I can say.
Nice to hear. And from open banking to open financing, do you think opening the data in a regulated way and for third parties offer more opportunities or challenges? How it works in Latin America? Diego, let's start from you.
Well, okay, open banking is now a reality around here in Brazil. It's very new. Everything is happening very fast, and we are on the second phase actually, of the open bank around here in Brazil. But we could see some results. First, there's a new character on this scenario, the payment initiation services providers, the PISPs. Here in Brazil. So the first use case, was the WhatsApp Pay. So WhatsApp Pay has recently received a payment license around here in Brazil in order for them to send money to each user, so on a peer-to-peer basis. This is just the first movement of the open banking around here in Brazil, because now we are under discussions and how the fintech companies could provide access to credit for SMEs through an open banking framework. Mm-hmm. For instance, we have a lot of big companies here that offers services on the daily basis, like food delivery. So they also can provide credit for the people that use the services. So this is possible because of the open banking system around here in Brazil. Because, as you see, a food delivery platform is not a financial services provider, is not a bank. But through the open bank, they can be connected with a fintech company or with a small entity that is allowed to offer credit around here in Brazil. So they are offering these services now for its users. So it's very useful when you are connected to services like that, and you can handle your personal finance with a super app that can be more connected with your day. As you use the services, they know you better than your bank, I believe. So there's a big movement around here in Brazil as well. But we are only on the beginning of the open finance.
Do I hear well that I can lease my dinner? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Michelle. Sorry. Michelle.
No, sorry.
Okay, Michelle, please share your experience talking about open banking and open financing.
Yeah, sure. So I think open banking, open financing is still has a way to go. But there are three main benefits that I see. So the first one, with open banking, what you will stimulate is more innovation, because there's more data available that can be used to innovate. Mm-hmm. The second thing, with this data, what we will also be able to do is to be able to build even better risk scoring models to serve, again, underserved or unserved people or businesses. I think that's a big benefit as well. And then the third thing, what I really see with open banking, it also stimulates collaboration between different organizations. This is something, again, what we at Mambu call composable banking, more the ecosystem way of thinking, where instead of operating in silos, you now really have collaboration, which again stimulates the innovation part that I mentioned previously. But really, in this day and age, what I believe is that there are companies specialized in specific parts of building a bank or building an alternative finance architecture. And instead of trying to be an alternative finance player that focuses on being a jack of all trades, or buying like a standard piece of software and putting a nice front end on top of it, which we also refer to as lipstick on a pig. You can now actually integrate those best of breed solutions together, and based on that create real synergy benefits. So instead of trying to be a jack of all trades but a master of none, you are now integrating all those masters of one into one solution with real synergy benefits. So those are the three things that I see as real benefits. However, the challenge that I see is financial literacy, or actually in this case more. So Mambu did a study. We did a study on open banking, and what we realized that many people. So we did the survey under different individuals, and what we realized is that these individuals actually don't know what open banking means, and therefore also don't really trust their data. So data and privacy, providing that in order to stimulate open banking, I see that as a challenge. But the funny part is that actually financial institutions of our individuals at the same time offer all their data to a Facebook. And the big difference is with Facebook, it's very clear for them what the benefit is. And with open banking, it's not often that clear what the benefit is. And I think that's where we still have really a way to go. And if we do so, it will only get better with regards to the three positive points that I mentioned in the beginning.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thomas, something to add?
I have to completely agree with my colleagues regarding these points. It's a huge opportunity for us. Some of the challenges are the banks are not very quick to open up the information and share with the third parties. But it's a progress, and we're working towards it. And then another challenge is that, as Michel said, is the trust, maybe more like a lack of trust of giving out data to specific users, right? But it's a huge opportunity for us, considering that from the end point of view, from an end user, which in our case is the business that wants to borrow the money, the user journey is much quicker because we can access the data that we need in order to make a decision in much more quicker way, rather than going back and forth and then logging into the bank, download bank statements, send it to us. There's something error. We need to go back to them. It's just a lot of going back and forth, while they can give us the access and we can use the data. From our point of view as a lender, we now have a much more clear, up-to-date information about what's going on in the business. The financial statements that we get from the clients, they just show a snapshot, which is historical data. We don't necessarily see what's going on right now within the business. So we can add more data points into our credit risk models and make more accurate and objective decisions when it comes to that. So which leads up to better pricing for the customers as well. So it's only the benefits that I can see.
Okay. And you, in real life, you're using open data, open banking in your cases in general?
Not yet. We're still working with the third parties in order to access the data. In Lithuania, some of the banks are not very willing to share the information for a specific period of time. We can access it for like the latest 30 days or so for some of the banks, but we need a much more longer period in order to understand what's going on within the business. So it's still in progress.
Okay, thank you. Sorry. At the beginning, we touched this innovation topic. The second, I think, important innovation topic is artificial intelligence. And artificial intelligence is perhaps the most significant single technology class of all. Each year, there are major developments, and we see use cases and make its way into everyday technology we use. Are there any developments in this area? And you see these developments, particularly in your cases, in your way. Please share, Michel, your examples.
For this one, I'll keep it short. So in terms of artificial intelligence, yes, it's a tremendous topic in terms of innovation. I think you can apply the innovation in all the front end, the middle office, and the back end of your financial institution. The three things where I more specifically towards lending, I think I'm most enthusiastic about, and where I see continuous improvement are so within the front ends, of course, the communication with your customer, automating that, having chatbots, things like that. But the main thing for me is really the credit risk scoring model. So having really a customer-centric credit risk scoring model where you can really differentiate yourself compared to any other competitor, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's where really the difference will be gained. And lastly, fraud monitoring. So fraud monitoring in general is also a hot topic, which then more for traditional banks often really becomes a topic where there are thousands of people within a traditional bank really diving into that. I think with AI, you can also solve part of that. There is always still going to be, at least in the coming years, still going to be people needed to evaluate what AI is doing, but it can already tremendously help the work that needs to be done there. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you. Thomas, do you believe in artificial intelligence, or you think the manpower is the best power to make decisions?
Not really, not at all. So yeah, the data on its own, in our business, it's all about data, but data on its own does not really mean anything unless you try to make sense of it. So using artificial intelligence, which is a cool buzzword that everyone's using right now, we can use the historical information about our clients and make better credit decisions going into the future. And the more data that we get about the customers, the better decisions we can make. So this is something really excited about. Yeah, it's as simple as that. We utilize the new credit risk models, run the regression analysis on our applications, and increase our time, how long it takes to process each application, so our end users can get the decision much faster. Mm-hmm. But more importantly, we can score our applicants more objectively. We as humans are not really good at being objective sometimes. There's a lot of factors that influence that. While just looking at the pure data, you can make way more accurate decisions than you would do with just the analyst alone. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. You are from risk underwriting knowledge, yeah?
Correct.
Yeah, and do you see, maybe you calculated even, who is managing better the risk, humans or artificial intelligence or machine learning algorithms? What you see?
The answer is combination of these two.
Okay.
It's measured by the Gini coefficient, the spread of, just like randomness versus, the accuracy of the analyst or machine calculating the risk score. So what we found out historically is that there are certain elements that the machine learning cannot take into consideration while building a credit risk model. So you can get a good base score for the credit risk, but then you need an analyst with a human brain that can add specific variables that can be automated to the point. So the combination of these two makes the best decision possible. Yes.
Okay, clear. Thanks for sharing. And Diego, what is in Brazil? Artificial intelligence. It's only buzzword, or you works on this and a lot of money floods into this area as well?
Well, somehow it's a buzzword, but this is something that I like the most. Well, here in Brazil, most recently, there has a bill that was passed on the Brazilian Parliament, giving the artificial intelligence framework. This is something very focused on ethical use of artificial intelligence on the market, and also some basic principles how to develop something using artificial intelligence in the core. But on the financial services perspective, we also have the robo advisors around here in Brazil that somehow offer you investments opportunities, being connected with the way you use your data. So it's something that is happening very fast around here in Brazil. But I think somehow there's a lack of regulation on how you can use those algorithms to identify investment opportunities, because there's a lot of risks, and something that you have to be aware is how to handle the third-party monies and putting this to a robot to decide it. It's not an easy task to do it, but I think it's the future. And also, the open banking now it offers a good situation for those services that aggregates information for the end users, especially those apps that you can see your financial situation, and they put together all the financial results that you had invested so far on one only screen. So this is something that is happening very fast around here in Brazil as well. I think it's more than a buzzword, I could say, but it's a trend.
Okay, it's trendy topic. Before the final thoughts and remarks, maybe guys, you are professionals from different areas, from different experience and the background. Maybe you can share some thoughts and examples and or questions. Please ask each other about the alternative financing market. What was not, touched during this discussion? Thomas, maybe you have some questions. Michelle, Diego.
Yeah, I might have a question for Thomas. I'm just curious, like all the things that we've seen or discussed in today's session, how do you, like, from your own perspective, how do you compare Finbi to traditional banks, and where do you see the opportunity and where do you see, we talked about the challenges, but let's focus then potentially on the opportunity then. I'm very curious.
Good question.
Of
Why
course.
you are successful? In other words.
In our business and within the SME segment, the customer support, I think, is the key in order to have a successful business. In most of the cases, our customers are really small companies where the CEO of the company needs to do a lot of things, from the accounting to financing to manufacturing the product. So he needs someone to talk in human language when it comes to helping to find the right financing solution. The banks are, I think, being too conservative, and there's no dialogue between these two. So, besides offering the money to the business, we offer advice, we listen to them, and then we make suggestions, and we talk to them like, human beings. So I think that's what's really is important. And another aspect is that, as mentioned previously, to get a loan for the SME in a bank, the process is usually weeks rather than days. And the small businesses, they come to us when they have an opportunity, where they need the money right now, or they have a problem that needs to be fixed in a accurate time manner. And waiting for weeks for the answer does not work for our customers. We need to find a solution for them within days. So this is another key differentiator from us and the banks. And I think these two are the most important things that we find that really works for our customers.
Maybe we not touched the pricing because it's cost. What do you think about the pricing range? It's important, just to finalizing the deals.
Of course, it's important, but I guess in some cases it's not the most important factor for our customers. Banks in Lithuania, being super conservative, they only make deals that are larger ticket size, basically, and where the credit risk is significantly less to our typical customer. So we cannot compete with the bank regarding the pricing. We don't have this access to cheap capital. However, we help the businesses that are overseen by the banks. So they don't really have any other choice. Just come to us, alternative lenders.
Clear.
If I may ask a question on that, if that's okay, just one.
Yeah, please.
So indeed, what I find really interesting is the perceived higher risk, because in the end, what I believe, if you build a credit risk scoring model that is tailored to your end customer, in how far is that really more risk? I think the challenge for banks are that they just don't know how to score and how to determine what the credit risk level is of these companies. So I I would argue that it's not even a higher risk, it's just an unknown, and therefore for them a perceived higher risk. But in general, if you look at a general level, it's not per se a higher risk. I'm just very curious if you both or all three of you agree with that or disagree.
I'm moderator, but I agree.
Great.
Diego, do you have some questions, or Thomas? Or we can pass on final thoughts and remarks?
No, I think we can go to the final remarks. No worries.
Okay, guys. So finalizing our discussion, let's make like quick remarks and to be on top of mind of our customers, what I should bring for them in general. What will be the main selling points and competitive advantages for players who is participating in this game? The main idea is this question, what I should sell for the customers and they will value it, okay? And Thomas, maybe you can start.
Sure. So I guess I briefly answered this question in my previous one. So the customer support, we need to give guidance to our customers. We need to speak to them like human beings, and we need to make a connection with them. And so it wouldn't be just like a one sell-off and then I'm going to disappear kind of situation. Another aspect is the speed. So it's important to automate the processes, automate the credit risk decisioning in order to make decisions of the credit worthiness in a much faster way and more accurate way. So that's really important. And yeah, I guess these are the two main factors.
Selling phones.
Yes.
Okay. Diego, please share from your experience why they are growing so fast, alternative financing. You have 21 unicorn in Brazil, so it's a huge amount of unicorns. What they are selling? Yes. It's just buzzwords they are selling, or they have real services here?
Well, I think it's the how easy you can offer it. You have to make it simple, I could say, So I think these companies can offer something simple for the end user, something that the user is familiar, how to touch, how to use it, and it's simple. You don't need to have any assistance to hire something online. As Thomas said, that there's a lot of automation of process that is important for the end user as well. So in my perspective, this is the most important selling point for a fintech to grow, how you make it simple.
Thank you. Michel?
Yeah, I align with what Diego and Thomas have shared. I think in order to be truly successful, customer centricity is key. And I know customer centricity is a buzzword as well. So let me just quickly explain what I mean by that. What I don't mean by that is taking your product, which you think is beautiful, and putting a nice front end, as I mentioned in one of the previous questions, and then just shoving it to your customer. What I do mean with that is really understanding your customer journey. Interview your customer. Talk to other players in the market to really understand every step in your customer journey. From the moment that they might not even be aware that they have a need until the moment that they really, really need that specific loan in this particular case. And instead of secondly, what you then should be doing, in my opinion, is also going through the life cycle of your own financial product and mapping those two things together. So really understanding, how does my financial product, but also how does my servicing part, which Thomas was also referring to, so customer success, really having that personal touch, really match with every single step in the life cycle or the journey of my customer. And again, this is the philosophy that Mambu has, and this is why we also coined the term composable banking, because what that enables you to do is, once you have your customer journey, really your customer journey, and the life cycle of your product, you can really start determining which specific systems are best of purpose for every element across that journey. And then by integrating those all together, you get the best outcome for your customer. And that's what I truly believe in. I think the ones that will survive and continue to grow are the ones that really understand their customer and spend sufficient time to continuously also iterate and improve the understanding of their customer, because that's forever changing. That's something that we all know.
Thank you. So basically, we covered a lot of topics. I truly, believe in alternative financing market, and I hope we soon more unicorns in this market locally and globally. And thank you, colleagues. Thank you, dear panelists, Thomas, Michelle, and Diego. And I hope I will see you soon personally in the bar drinking the beer, guys. Thank you, guys.
Indeed.
And thank you for sharing your experience, your examples, and figures.
Thank you.
Think
Thank you very much.
Listeners will evaluate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much as well.
Thank you. Cheers and bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, guys.
Bye.
Mindaugas, thank you very much for your moderation today, sir. I'm always fascinated in that relationship between fintechs and the banks, the up-and-comer and the entrenched. And one really great comment that came out near the end was talking about service. And it said that the alternative finances, the fintechs, well, they can offer better service. They can really get to know their customer. They can really dig in. And what occurred to me was, wait, that's what banks used to do. Back in the day, banks were known for having, and then they kind of migrated away from that. So it's almost like there's this weird changing of roles. The two of them, banks want to become fintechs sometimes, fintechs want to become banks. How do you see the relationship between those two?
This like flirtating relationship, because then you're a bank and when you control 80% of the market share, the same in Brazil, pretty much the same in the Baltics. You are how to say, very brave to do nothing, basically, to do nothing, because the clients comes automatically. You are cherry picking. But when you are young, you are hungry, you are fintech, you should grow, because behind you there is investors, the customers, they want more services. You should prepare your approach and your services like in more active way. You should express more. You should make more PR. You should make like more. You should hire even more active people. So in that case, I think we will see who will win this game in the long run. But from the Baltic perspective, as with what we see, that traditional lending, traditional banks already see as a potential competitors, and in the long run, I think we will beat some and kick some asses.
Look, the Baltics are a very interesting market because it's 30 years or so from the independence, so we don't even really remember the good old days of banking.
Yeah, we don't hear it.
It hasn't been here for us at all. But I'll end on one final question for you, maybe a little philosophy coming back to the Baltics. In your mind, is the Baltics an emerging market? Brazil kind of makes sense, I guess, but is that how you see the Baltics, or how would you describe the Baltic market?
When we're talking about the fintechs and alternative lending, I think we are still emerging market, because we are creating this alternative market. Before, when I started the SME finance, basically 5 years ago, it was like even with 0.2% of the market share. Now we are growing like 10% on monthly basis. So I think it's still emerging market.
Okay.
But the banks, they're growing like 3% yearly. So that's why we can say honestly, we are still growing.
Okay, catching up. Very good. Thank you very much for your time, Mindaugas.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for enjoying that session. We're going to see you on the next one soon.